Hey, it's Kristina from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs, and today we are going to talk all about the basics of watering a shrub. So, we're going to cover how to know when you need to water and how to water. So with a newly planted shrub, you want to check the soil moisture before you actually apply any water. And you can do that with your fingers. You can go around the outside of the root ball, kind of by the drip line of the plant, and that's just where the foliage is and where the water would drip down. So you check right there, and you're gonna dig your fingers like 2 to 3 inches down into the soil so that you are getting past the mulch and down into the soil. If the soil is still moist, don't water. If it is dry or almost dry, then you can water thoroughly. Or you can use a water meter. I love a water meter because it tells you very clearly what is going on with the soil moisture around your plant. It's also quicker. You can check a few different points around the plant much faster. So you'll stick it down into the soil at that same point, at that drip line, and you'll go nice and deep into the soil. And if the moisture meter reads dry or almost dry, then you'll water. If it's still in the moist section, don't water. You can check again tomorrow or the next day. And if it's wet, then you know you have got a while. So, like I said, we'll just check a few different places around the shrub to know, is it time to water? I'd also like to talk about one mysterious thing that you might see if you stick your water meter right into the center of the plant. The water meter might read dry, and this might be really confusing because if you're applying water right at the center of the plant all the time, you might think, isn't it supposed to be wet? Isn't it supposed to be moist? If the root ball is very dense, then it won't be collecting any moisture right there because they're all roots. There's no soil to retain the moisture. And that's why we take our readings outside of that main dense root ball, because that's where your roots are heading anyway. We want to water the plant in a way that encourages those roots to stretch outward into its surroundings to get water, and that will also help it in the future. When a plant's roots move outward into the soil, that helps it get established faster and helps future you because you'll be watering less. The plant will be able to access moisture from precipitation events a lot easier if its roots aren't just kept all the way tight by the plant. They're expanded out into the environment, getting as much water as possible. Now you might be wondering, do I have to check the soil moisture every single time before I water my new shrub? And my suggestion is at first, yes. So you want to get a feeling for the natural rhythm of the soil environment you have. If you notice that you're watering every 3 to 4 days, then you'll have a sense for it, and you can just plan to water every 3 to 4 days unless there's a precipitation event, in which case that resets, and then you would just water 3 to 4 days after the precipitation event. And that's why I suggest not immediately putting your plants on a timer for drip or for irrigation. You want to get to know what your garden is actually like, and then you can set a timer. Now for actually watering the plant. So if you have one plant to water, I would suggest just getting your hose or spray nozzle and watering right at the base of the plant. That water pressure is a little high, but you'll go all the way around the base of the plant like this. And you would just go all the way around. And now you would go around a few different times to make sure that the soil is fully saturated. We checked the soil moisture before watering, and if you're still getting used to things, check it again after you water just to see if the soil got really wet, and then that might have been a little too much water, so you'd know to water for less time, to go in fewer circles around in the future. Or if you needed to water a little bit more, if it's still red, almost dry, or just kind of low end of moist. Now, if you've got a whole garden to water, you've planted a new bed, how exciting, you might want to water with a wand if you've got a smaller space. This also helps you water at the ground level, and watering at ground level is important if you can, because that will save water. It won't just get all over the foliage and then eventually evaporate off. You'll use less water, and that water will just get to sink right down into the soil. Another thing about watering from soil level is that you will reduce the chance of pests and diseases attacking your plant. Because when we water from above, that is increasing the humidity levels around your plant, which can introduce black spot, powdery mildew, all those kinds of things, and just generally weaken the plant. So when watering a whole garden, you'll use that wand to also water at ground level, like that, and you'll just go around the plants themselves at that drip line right outside of the plant, like that. So those are the two ways that you can manually water if you have the time or a smaller garden, but you may be using a sprinkler. And if that is the case, then I'd recommend monitoring how much water is being put down each time that you do it for the first couple times, just so you have an idea of how long to run the sprinkler. And the best way to do that is with a container that has relatively flat sides. If you could, it would just be right upright, but most of us, this is the kind of upright that we can have. And the size of the container doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how much surface area is in there, because the area of ground that it will take up will be more if it's a wider dish, less if it is kind of narrow like this, but the same depth of water will go into either type of dish. So what you'll do is you'll place your container, or a few different containers if you'd like, around your garden in spaces where the sprinkler will be able to go right into it. And you'll monitor, like, how long does it take for it to get about an inch or half an inch of water. And then you'll be able to water for the correct interval, not leaving your sprinklers on for too long or not giving them enough time. You can try and get about an inch of water every time that you water. That's a nice thorough rain event. And just kind of go from there. Still monitor the soil moisture with your fingers or a moisture meter before and after you have your watering event, just so you know, was an inch of water good? Was it too much? And then go from there. Then you can make your schedule off of that. Now, the last way to apply water is with a drip emitter or a soaker hose. Those are nice ways to water because you set it up and then you don't really have to think about it after you set your schedule. But setting it up and setting the schedule is important. So you will monitor, like I've already been saying. So before you water your plant, you'll check the soil moisture, you'll set up your system, you'll run it for whatever is recommended from your manual, and then you'll check the soil moisture after that. Now, if it is an emitter where it is just on one side of the plant, you can check the soil moisture a couple of hours after it's run so that the soil has enough time to distribute that moisture across the area. And you'll see, do I need to adjust where it's positioned? Is it hitting too much of the plant and not getting enough soil surface? And then you would move it so that it would be able to kind of distribute that moisture evenly around the root ball. For a soaker hose, it's the same story. You just monitor before and after, see if you've run it for long enough. You might find that it was running for too long and the soil is too moist. So that would be if you stick your fingers down into the soil and it feels like it's coming away pretty wet. You still just want it to be moist and not soggy, because new plants will appreciate less frequent but very thorough watering events as opposed to more frequent but light water events, because that is mimicking our natural precipitation in many areas, but not all of them, I know. But like I said, deep waterings less often. So then you'll just monitor and set up your system. You'll get to know that it needs to run for 30 minutes and try and get that happening in the morning. And that's for your drip emitters, your soaker hoses, and your sprinklers, because that will give the plant time, especially for sprinklers, to evaporate any of that moisture off the foliage before nightfall, when it just could get darkened. The moisture would linger on the leaves and create that environment where it invites pest and disease. And in the morning when you're watering, the water has a chance to percolate down into the soil before being zapped away by the sun. Now, you're watching this video because you care about your new planting, and that means that you are an attentive gardener. And I will just let you know that a plant is more likely to suffer from overwatering than underwatering by us attentive gardeners. So if you're in doubt, you see your plant is struggling, and you've been watering very religiously, then just cut back a little bit. It's probably just a little too much water. A plant is a lot tougher than you might think. Now, if this video helped you, please like and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you again next time.